There's a fire, but no fire brigade.
Hello, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be covering talents for the new raid along with a look at some trinkets for Boomkin, and we're also going to dive into some numbers. So in case you guys didn't know, the Druid Discord has its own website where its experts have been testing as much as they possibly can to provide other chickens who shoot lasers at people information about the new raid and list recommendations on what build they should consider running. So let's jump right in. So here we have the Restless Cabal. Cabal is a very interesting fight when it comes to ranged, but you have to keep in mind that Druids are one of the classes who have a higher chance than others to be considered for tanking the caster boss. For row 1, this one is pretty simple. Nature's Balance has been the #1 talent in this section in terms of rating. For Mythic Plus, most of the time it will be one of the other two, but that's about all they're useful for. Row 2 is pretty situational. I can't make any recommendations, but I can agree with the information gathered that Wild Charge is extremely useful for movement purposes, much like other bosses throughout this expansion's raid tiers. Although if you feel you need to use Tiger Dash or Renewal to keep yourself alive, there's no shame in running either one. Row 3 is where it gets interesting for this boss fight in specific. Generally, most Boomkins will stick with Restoration Affinity due to how strong Yzora's gift is throughout a fight, and it also gains you access to Swiftman, which is a super strong heal. But that being said, if you are selected to tank the caster boss, Guardian Affinity is an absolute must, especially on higher difficulties such as Mythic. In this situation, you will be taking as much damage as a tank normally would, and that means that you're going to have to mitigate as much damage as possible to stay alive. Row 4, however, will not be covered because all three talents are situational utility and are most of the time never used unless certain mechanics call for it, such as a boss as Mythic Mechatorque. For row 5, Starlord has become a very common choice in lots of situations lately, as it does seem higher than Incarn for most people. There are several downsides though, #1 being that Starlord changes Boomkin rotation and is not recommended for a beginner. We will get into that in just a moment. Taking this talent allows you to have Celestial Alignment, which is shorter than Incarn, meaning fewer Streaking Star procs during cooldown usage. Incarn, however, lasts longer than Celestial Alignment and gets you more Streaking Star procs, and most of the time within the 30 seconds you can extend your Incarn during your burst session by getting your first Arcanic Pulsar proc off around the time that it ends. The downside to that is that once Incarn is used, it's a useless cooldown for 3 minutes compared to Starlord's constant buff if played correctly. Alright guys, I'm going to show you guys how I manage my Starlord stacks during raid. So the first thing I always do is on the 2-second pull timer, I always do a precast, and I use my pre-pots, get my dots rolling, and the first thing I look to do is to get to 80. Now that is very quick using Celestial Alignment, which I'm not going to do. So once you use 2 Star Surges in a row, that gives you your 2 stack with the haste buff. Then I instantly get up my 3rd stack. Now here's where Starlord gets confusing. You have to manage your dots, which I've failed to do and all that stuff. But once your timer starts running out, you have to race to 80. And I use a macro to cancel my Starlord stacks. That way I can get back to 2 instantly and start working on my 3rd. So that it's really confusing sometimes if you look and you've overcapped on Astral Power and you want to get your stacks back up quick. So you go and try to click off the buff off of your auras, and it's just so confusing to find. So that's why you always run a macro for this. You can remove it at any time. So like right now, I need to be racing to 80 as fast as I possibly can, which I would already have cleared in raid, which I'm going to clear now, get 2 stacks back up, and get back into the normal rotation. As soon as I hit 40, I'm going to dump, get my 3rd stack up, and now you have the full buff. That is how I manage my stacks, guys, and I hope that you guys can maybe practice that to use it to your advantage, and maybe it'll help some of you. For row 6, Twin Moons is going to be stronger than Solar Flare just based on the fact that there is more than one enemy in this encounter. Keeping 3 dots up on 2 bosses and the Visage from beyond ad spawn would be really annoying and probably end up costing you some much needed damage. Although for single target, Stellar Flare is still very strong. For row 7, Shooting Stars is 90% of the time the way you will want to go. Fury of the Loon generally doesn't deal a lot of damage unless there is a huge amount of ads stuck together, such as on Zekvaz, and if you take New Moon, that's a garbage disposal. For the last boss in this raid, it's basically the same boss fight in terms of AoE to single target damage, so you're going to run the same talents except for switching Guardian Affinity. I recommend switching back to Restoration so that you get Ysara's Gift along with Swiftman back. Now we can take a look at some numbers. First, let's review trinkets. The sliver is still our best in slot, however in many cases it is hard to use or you're just not able to and it's not worth having. This is why I always run the Crest of Paku along with my Mage's Fuse, and when I'm able to run the sliver, I'll knock the Mage's Fuse out of the equation for times that I can. Please keep in mind that Sims are just like personalities. Everyone is going to have their differences because of their stats, and I recommend that you follow stat priority given through raid bots, and don't forget to check top gear to see what your best options are. When I sim using Incarn, you'll see that it is lower than Starlord. With Incarn, I sim for 27,520 DPS. However, when I switch to Starlord, I go up to 28,513 DPS. That is a huge difference just for a talent swap. I believe that the reason Starlord is higher, like I stated earlier, Incarn is just a dead cooldown until the 3 minutes has refreshed, whereas Starlord allows you to keep that buff up as much as you want. But do keep in mind, if you are not playing Starlord correctly, then you're more than likely going to lose damage. So hopefully by showing you how I usually manage my stacks of the buff, which works for me fairly well, hopefully it cleared up any confusion if you had any at all. If you liked the video, please make sure to subscribe both here and on Twitch. I'll leave a link in the description below about how to get to the Dream Grove websites and the Blood Mallet websites. So thanks for watching, guys. Peace.